Okay, I wanted to do a quick video on math. Uh, so we often look at ribbons or builds, and there's some standard ways that things get built, and the Nukor is one of those really weird ones, where if we take everything off, right, so this is sort of a standard viral heat crit build that you would use on, a sort of standard crit weapon. But if we take everything off here, and then go back, let's go back to our upgrades. Okay, so now we should be able to see our base critical chance is only 7%, which means that even getting prime pistol gamut in there is only going to take it up to 20. So we're getting effectively 13% crit. There's not a whole lot else competing for the slot on the Kuva Nukor specifically. So if we've built it with magnetic, you've got radiation magnetic already. You're just going to want to build either viral in heat or corrosive in heat, and now you've got 4 elements with huge amounts of status. I happen to have a Toxican Riven, so I've got my toxin taken care of with multi-shot instead of extra status chance. You notice that the values aren't super high here, so basically I've traded in 5% toxin and 60% status chance for 70% multi-shot and slightly less damage against infested. So it's just a slightly different 60-60 mod, really, and therefore not necessary. I mean, if you're looking at your Ribbon suspicion of 1, it's not going to make much difference. However, this is basically our stand-in in this build for Pistol Pestilence, right? So if you don't have, just do that and you're done, right? Same thing. So how do you figure out what's better? How do you figure out what's better? In general, you can do math, right? So we know that there are certain categories of bonuses. We know that Hornet Strike and Merciless share a category. They both stack up to 350, 360% and 220. So you can get up to 580% with the total of them together. We could also use the, oh, where is it? It's not overcharge. It's not overcharge. It's actually, I guess, it's flare. So you can get 480% on heat status effect if you don't care about the reload speed and ammo maximum. I think for the Kuva Nukor, you probably do care about the ammo max. It tends to run out pretty fast if you're actually just like holding down the fire. Ruinous Extension, by the way, is just super good, but doesn't contribute to damage, so we're not gonna include that in our calculations. Enter in the Riven calculator here, and then we'll explain what's going on here. So this is a Riven damage calculator I put together to compare Rivens for the most part, but you can also use it just as equally well to compare damage between 2 mod setups. So the idea is you have your base weapon stats here, and then your standard setup percentage increases between your IPS values, your elemental damage, your total damage, and then the multi-shot critical chance, critical damage, and status chance. And then you basically fill in these increased columns, and then it figures out, what your total is, and then calculates damage. If we walk through, the elemental bonus is just the sum of whatever you've added plus this here. So if I put 165 on there, it's going to multiply by the total amount of damage and give us 165% bonus damage of an elemental type on top of this. So this is basically our sum of our 60-60 mods, prime key to charge, stuff like that. So this just says, like, I just have prime key to charge on there, right? We're going to delete all this, right? And this kind of starts showing where your basic multiplier is. And what this does is it's going to take in your damage bonuses and then multiply it by your total damage bonuses, right? So in your standard setup, your total damage bonus in the case of Merciless is going to be 360, right? So now you have a basic multiplier of 4.6, right? Because we're doing 360% bonus damage on top of our 1x regular damage, right? So it's now 4.6x. And then if we have, for example, an elemental bonus of 150, right? So now that takes us up to 50 bonus damage on top of that 33. So like 100 should just show 33.6, right? So if we have a total damage of 33.6 and we're getting just our bonus damages in here, then, you know, great. Now, where we want to start doing our math here is figuring out what all we're slotting in. So we've got galvanized diffusion. We know that that's gonna come in. So let's go ahead and put in galvanized diffusion. Recognize that our 110% multi-shot is going to stack up, and we're doing fully stacked, by the way, right? So the calculation is going to be most effective at max stacks of whatever you're doing. So anything below that will be a slightly different calculation, and we can show that later. But I don't think it's super important. So this actually is 30 times 2, or sorry, 30 times 4 is 120. So this is a total of 230% multi-shot, right? So 230 plus our 71.9 is right at 301.9% multi-shot. So let's go ahead and enter that in, 301.9, and that's our standard setup, right? Now, riven increase, notice under this would normally be where I would put that 71.9, and I would just put 230 over here. However, that's not what we're doing here. What we're actually comparing is the difference between two specific mods that can go in a slot, so we'll get there. We also know that we're going to use prime target cracker. That's just amazing. Taking it from a 5 to a 10x is super good damage. So we now have, and that's our CD here, right, 5x, and this is 110%. And that's all going to be there. And then we know we're probably going to want to do our galvanized shot down here to give us an additional 40% direct damage per status type. We're going to effectively assume by the point that we get all our stuff built in that we actually have 4 statuses going. So that's going to be 3 times 40%, right? So that's 120, then times 4. So that's another 480% bonus damage. So now that is, instead of 360, we're going to actually modify this as a formula, and we're going to say that's 360 plus 480, right? So that's now including galvanized shot. And now, what this requires is for us to have killed 12 targets in 4-second increments, as well as 4 targets within the last 14, or 3 targets within the last 14 seconds, or whatever it is, the galvanized shot. That being said, Nukor kind of melts things, so we're going to assume that that math works. Okay, now, this is where we start to get interesting, right? So we're going to go ahead and pull in our primed heated charge. That's 165% heat. By the way, this is 65%, 80% status as well. And then we're also going to have a couple more 60/60 mods in there. So we're going to put Frostbite in here, and then we're going to put Scorch over here, right? Because we want it to be heat weighted. We want mostly heat procs, and then Viral is just to, we want it to stack 10 and then not do as much. Okay, so now we have 60, 120, 200% bonus status, which, yay verily, 50% goes to 150 because we've multiplied it by a total of 3, so that's good. So that's our standard increase, is 200% status chance. And now elemental bonus, we've got 60, 60, and 165. So we can do that here with just an equals 165 plus 120. Rather. Okay, and then we also have to add in our Riven, which was, I believe, 55%. Okay, so we've got 340% bonus damage, and this is our stack of normal mods, right? So the question here is whether or not it's better to go ahead and use Hornet Strike to boost our initial damage from 400 up to 1335, or if we just get 13% crit, right? So there is a huge difference in terms of the number you see here and this 13% crit, and it feels real bad to have this 20% going on here. So what we're going to look at then is in our Riven calculator. Let's go ahead and get a CC bonus of 187 here with prime pistol gambit, right? We're going to get an additional 220% damage there. And if you notice, already we're looking at prime pistol gambit doing an average total damage of 16,000 versus the 11,000 of Hornet Strike. And the reason here is because we actually only go from 840 to 1060 instead of essentially, 0% bonus to 220% bonus. We're already sitting on like an 840% damage bonus with this. So Prime Pistol Gambit just super outperforms it. And that's before we add in the additional percentage crit chance that we normally have. So what we can do here is we can actually go into this average crit multiplier right here, and we're going to change the formula. So this is going to be the crit multiplier with Avenger, right? And so if we take this formula, right, plus 0.45, and what that should take us to is, in normal circumstances, a 5.94, right? So that actually makes a lot of sense. So normally, if we're doing 7% crit chance and we add 45% crit chance, now we have a 52% crit chance. And when we crit, we do 10.5x. When we don't crit, we do 1x. So take half of both, add them together. So we've got 10.5 divided by 2 is 5.75 or 5.25, and then add another 0.5 to that, and we get about 5.94. And again, it's 52%, so it's not actually exactly 50%, so it's going to be slightly higher than that. So our average crit multiplier with Avenger goes up here. And now I think we should be able to copy and paste this if I did my formulas correctly. Yeah. And then if we now say average damage with Avenger, right? And we're going to take this formula now, so it's C18 times C19, right? So we're going to look at that, say modded damage times average crit multiplier. Okay, so now this is going to be equal to modded damage times C20. And now we get our with Avenger in there. And now, if we see that Avenger is up, Prime Pistol Gambit falls below Hornet Strike. So depending on your setup, if you're going to have Galvanized Shot up all the time, if you're going to have Prime Merciless up all the time, Hornet Strike falls below if you don't use Arcane, right? So if you're not using Arcane Avenger, also I spelled damage totally wrong there, so let's go fix that before my brain explodes here. Average damage with Avenger. There we go. Okay, so we've got average damage with Avenger in there. And now we're looking at our total damage of Prime Pistol Gambit actually falling below. So a little bit of a nuanced thing there, and all of this comes down to pen and paper math, which kind of doesn't matter because the Kuva Nukor is going to kill everything you touch pretty much regardless. But there you go. If you want to optimize your particular build for max stacks or minimum stacks, you might care about whether you use Prime Pistol Gambit or Hornet Strike. Your mileage may vary. Feel free to set up an Excel calculator like that, and hopefully you all learned something. And if you didn't learn anything, maybe at least still had some fun. As always, we love you all. Take care, be safe, and we'll catch you on the next one.